Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Seastone Lowdown. Giving you guys a couple announcements today and another devotional thought, something we can be thinking about this week. It sure has been a crazy week and a half we've had here, tacking on to the crazy 3 months we've had. It's been an interesting time in our world for sure. But one thing I want to talk about is coming up June 14th. We're going to be having our first in-person service available. So we're actually out here in the yard again. This is where we're going to be doing our first in-person service. We're going to be streaming this Sunday service. We'll actually be streaming from out here so we can kind of practice that. So if there's any technical issues on Sunday, please bear with us. We'll always be getting that stream back up on YouTube. If for some reason it closes out for some whatever happens, just you can expect us. It'll be back up there in a couple minutes, worst case scenario. But yeah, we'll be out here this Sunday, and then the following Sunday we're hoping to open it up for people to come in and join us. And just a reminder of kind of the measures we're going to be putting in place to keep people safe. First off, we're going to ask people to wear face coverings like this to cover your nose and mouth. Stylish, profiling. I mean, yours can look cooler than mine. That's totally acceptable. But we'd ask you guys to wear face coverings or something that covers your nose and mouth at least. And then also we're going to have temperature screenings when you guys come here. So if you guys could actually just do your temperature at home first, and if you have a fever, just stay home. That way we don't have to kick you or ask you not to come into service when we measure you here. Really, that's just like a secondary check, and to reassure everyone who does come that we're making sure that no one has a fever and is actively sick for any reason. We'll be social distancing, so there'll be kind of these big boxes that we'll set out, and we'll have ushers walk you to your kind of designated area, and we'll just ask you to hang out in that square while service is going on, and then we'll kind of release you guys afterwards. So bear with us with the whole thing. It's going to be a learning process for all of us. We're kind of doing that trial run this weekend, and hopefully that helps, and we'll get that ironed out well for June 14th when we'll hopefully be meeting in person. And speaking of this coming Sunday, actually Chris Germain is going to be speaking this weekend in Ephesians, so we're really excited to have Chris come and talk to us and hear from him, and we'll see you guys on stream this Sunday. So we talked about this on Sunday, and obviously everything that's been going on in the United States in this past week and a half has been, it's been a lot of things, and I think people are all over the map in terms of how they're feeling right now and what they're processing through and thinking about. And just want to affirm everyone that this is a crazy time, and it's a weird time for us to be processing things and processing things kind of separately from each other too, and that's a unique struggle in and of itself. And I think as we think about justice in terms of the church and how do we deal with justice and how do we think about it, it can be a challenging thing as we first realize, like theologically, that God is the ultimate source of justice and the only source of true, fair, equal justice that we'll ever experience. We can get close to it here on earth, but we will never actually truly experience what that is like until we're in heaven. And so when we face situations like we have in this past week, we see a lack of justice in different ways, and it's hard for us to process that and experience that. And I think one thing that's been helpful for me to think about this, and in terms of how we're thinking about it, me and the staff have been going through this book actually called A Hole in the Gospel. It's by Richard Stearns, who's the founder, or not founder, but CEO of World Vision, which is this book. It's talking about kind of the thesis of it is that when we talk about the gospel, we often talk about the love and the forgiveness and the eternality of the gospel as well in terms of life in heaven with God. But what we miss out in the hole that he's saying is in the gospel is that the gospel is also really focused on justice and social justice. And I'm not using that in a political term in any ways, but really as in God cares about justice here in the world now in our lives. He cares about us caring about people who face injustice in their lives here now in our lives, not just eternally, but presently. And so it's just an interesting book, and if you guys want to read more into this subject, I would encourage you guys to maybe pick this book up. It's been encouraging to think about and process through how, as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, do I deal with injustice in the world, wherever I see it, whenever that is, whether it's what happened this last week or something that happens in 20 years from now, or in some other country, like whatever happens, how do I deal with injustice in the world? How do I think about that? How should I care about that? And really his thought is that when we face injustice and we see that in the world, the gospel should drive us into action. Right? It should drive us into filling voids that need to be filled, into loving people in the midst of injustice. And so I encourage you guys to read that book if you're interested in digging a little more into this idea of how do we think about justice and care about that in the midst of not even in the midst, but just as a Christian and walking through our lives as we experience that in our lives, as we all will experience in our lives. And many times in our future, I'm sure we will still experience and witness injustice of different kinds in our world. And I want to encourage you guys today in Micah 6 as we respond to what's going on in our world. This kind of the context of this is Israel has been far away from God. They've been doing the wrong things, and Micah is encouraging them in this, and kind of what does it look like to be a follower of God in this moment. And he says this in Micah 6, starting in verse 6. He says, with what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. That last section of verses is pretty famous, and I think it's a good framework of how we should be responding right now in the world, right? This is the context of this, of Israel's not acting correctly, and they're like, hey, what religious things can I do to make up for this? Mike's saying, hey, you're missing the point. It's about acting justly, being humble and loving kindness in the world, loving mercy. And so as we think about this and we process through, and whatever happens these next weeks and months in our country, think about how can we act justly, love justice. How can we be kind and merciful towards other people, and ultimately walk humbly too? I think it's an important thing when we're thinking about this, of understanding that we don't understand every person's perspective in different ways, and it's hard for us to grasp other people's perspectives at different times, and to be humble enough to understand that other people have different life experiences than us, that bring different things to the table in these conversations and in our world. And so that's my encouragement to you guys today, and just in the midst of a crazy world, just know that God is a just God, that ultimately whatever justice we seek in our own world, God is the one who ultimately holds everyone to justice. He is the ultimate judge, and we all must face that at some point in our life, and it is only Christ himself who justifies us when we face God. And so I just want to encourage you as we process through that to maybe look through Micah 6 yourself, and or read through this book and just start to process and think about what does justice look like in our lives as Christians. And I think ultimately it comes back down to how do we respond to people personally, and how do we love people, and how do we act mercifully, and how do we walk in humbleness in our lives. We love you guys so much. Thanks for watching this video today, and we will see you guys on Sunday.